So let's get into it. I'll sit down here. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, before you got into real estate, what did you do?
I was a child support investigator with the district attorney, and I did a little bit of stunt with Department of Justice, pretty much just investigation background. And I
Wow.
decided to get my license after my second son was born, so 2005.
So what made you get into the investigation background stuff?
Well, I had always studied that through college,
Okay, so you went
and
to college for
I went
that.
to
Yeah.
college, studied. My husband's in law enforcement, and that was really what I love to do. A lot of contract work for me there. I worked through the court system, judge assistant. I've done a lot, so I'm real familiar with just laws and policies and explaining things. So I think the love for wanting to go the real estate route probably stemmed from that. That I like to explain things to people and felt like I was good at it. So that made me try to pursue real estate.
I think that's probably huge with contracts as well, because you're used to just like that paperwork.
Yep.
So yeah, that's super interesting. So what made you, so you said in 2005 you got into real estate. So what made you think I'm gonna just, 'cause that's a total career change.
So
Completely.
I would work overtime, at the job that I was doing while raising two boys, and my husband was never around. We both had opposite shifts. So ultimately, my goal for going into real estate, other than just getting into a different field and continuing to do what I thought my strong point was contracts, and explaining and talking to people that I don't know. It was primarily to cut back on overtime. So that was definitely not what happened. I think I went into that, and that's probably the biggest, night and day, rude awakening that I got into real estate, and as well coming back into it after several years. So I just thought, hey, I want to be at home. I want to work in a different field, not travel the distance I was driving to work while raising two kids. And I quickly found enough that I was working weekends and the whole bit.
And driving everywhere and stuff like that. So you didn't start in commercial though, right? You probably went the traditional route.
Yeah, I went into the traditional route, got my license, had really good mentors. I got kind of caught up in the young professionals network at the time. They were real boutique-y. This particular group that I was with was up in Arcadia, Pasadena, and they were getting really boutique-y, getting into like, hey, we can do this, hey, we could do that. And I just felt like I rode their coattails. I was staying, on top of things and just running with them. Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, we can do that. And so nothing was not possible in my early years. So I got into a lot of niche stuff early on. I would say varieties you probably wouldn't imagine. I just got real nichey and just ran with them.
Are you from the Pasadena area?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you still live out there?
No, I live here now.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. So how would you say when you started you made your career change, how was your start? Was it a fast start, a slow start?
So I won Rookie of the Year my first year, and it was because of listings. And it wasn't because they were luxury listings or top number listings, it was the volume. And the reason why I did that was because I just shot out of the cannon and started to try to think of where my niche would be. I wasn't so caught up on all the residential. I did residential. I got lucky, got some luxury stuff up there, in Pasadena, Arcadia, very early on. But I started to find myself into these loops where like I got very familiar with like the jockeys at the racetrack. And then I said, well, I can lease you houses. When do you need housing when you come into town? Next thing I know, I was doing leases for all the jockeys. Next thing I know, the meat market company that was known in town was, needing a house to buy. And so it just unraveled. And then I contacted a company that does like cash for kids, if you ever heard of that. And that guy was out of state and said, Terry, listen, I'm having trouble. I need all these listings in the mountains and Arrowhead and Big Bear everywhere. I need them listed, but my struggle is I need the grant deeds filed. Basically, I'm not in state to do so. So I looked into it with my mentor and was like, I can do that. You can pay me outside of my brokerage to just go run and do the stamping for you. Again, it was a little bit of a gray area, but I just basically was like a runner and just ran and got it filed and then got listed to do all the listings. So the volume was coming on a niche level for me. And I think I just always ran with it. What could I do different,
Yeah, I think I always tell that to our newer agents too. I'm like, you'll do better if you find your niche, as opposed to trying to appeal to everyone if you can find one thing. But I want to ask you, so you're saying Cash for Kids, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it was like those things you hear, on the TV. And I called one of them and said, do you ever get properties? Yeah, I do. I'm in Utah. How can you help me? So just kind of thinking out of the box, really. I got into a lot of leasing early on. Leasing was absolutely something I did hand over. I mean, I was doing so much leasing, and I still do now. And I have a love for leasing, actually, still, I think. Yeah, for certain reasons.
I know you do a lot of leasing with commercial, and I know that that is super necessary. So that's kind of cool that you're able to transfer that over to that. So I wanted to see, when did you start seeing your business grow on a consistent level?
So, I mean, early on, getting, a really good start. My first impression with real estate wasn't a great one because I was only in it for a couple years before the recession hit. That last big one jolt we had. I found myself in my office at the time being the first agent to go after a short sale negotiation on my own home. And nobody had done a short sale that I knew in the local area. So my boss was like, well, try to negotiate, just talk with them and figure it out. So I literally sold my home, negotiated a short sale on my home, still got paid and walked away with $35,000. And they didn't put anything on my credit as a short sale. So I negotiated that early on, went through all the paperwork, got out of the house. And I look back at that a lot and I think, it was such a big win for me because then the office started to run with it. Like, okay, we can do them. This is how you do them. And ultimately, I had, marketed to a bunch of police officers. I was running an ad in the police magazines that come out because my husband is in the department. And I got a lot of early referrals that way. And so that also helped me. But quickly, the market changed and turned, and it became so of a sour year for me, in the sense that people that were fully qualified with top dollar and great qualifications ended up, coming down to the end of closing and having to pay an extra 10 grand to buy the house because they were being underappraised. So I felt at that point like, this is just stressing me out. I wasn't bouncing from it easy enough because you've got really good qualified people, especially people that work with my husband, and they're going, what's going on? And I was saying, well, it's the market. Things are shifting. Things are appraising less. And then I looked like the bearer of bad news. So I really took a step back at that point and went back to work.
Oh, so you just
got out of it,
okay.
Took a step back and went back to work.
I always think about that too, because since I started in real estate, I've been about 5 years. Yeah. Such shifts. Constant. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I always think about that time where you're seeing people that you probably just helped buy homes starting to not be able to keep them. Or like you said, you have people who've been qualified and now they go to buy it and it's not working out. So I always wonder like how a lot of realtors handled that. Yeah. So that's interesting that you're like, okay, I'm going to take a break on this. So you went back to work. And
so I went back to work for several years and then raised my boys. And then, they're 18 and 24, and they just, flew the coop in the last 4 years, and one just left literally 2 weeks ago. So I got back into it with KW here. I started looking down in the beach area, wherever I can go. I knew I wanted to do commercial because I had dabbled into commercial years ago, left on commercial, and just knew that I'd get back into it when time permitted. I always thought I needed a calmer life, not raising the boys and just slowing down a little bit to really focus on the work to learn commercial. That was a big part of it. And so I knew I wanted to get back there. So I took a lot of time off, went back to my normal jobs that I told you guys about, and I was there for years. So once the boys finally left, I started searching the areas to see where they would pick me up doing retail. And I got hired here by Teresa. And I know at the time she was like, well, will you do residential? And I said, I can, but I don't really want to. I want to really focus on this. And she welcomed me and said, let's see how you do. And, this is a new area for me too. So to come over here and break into a commercial environment with all the brokers that are very well known here, that was huge for me. But I was just committed that I'm gonna jump back in and I'll find the work. And it's actually been very good for me because I've niched enough that I find the work.
So that leads me to my next question, which I kind of know the answer to, but I want to hear more about it. So who helped you? Was there a mentor that kind of helped you and kind of guided you along your way?
Honestly, from all the years that I took off, I would say it was just dead out of the water. I didn't do anything, always have a fancy for retail. Every trip I go on, I'm standing and taking photos of fronts of storefronts. That's just my love. So I've always had that interest in restaurants and bars and, let me get a photo of this cute storefront. And my husband's looking at me going, let her take a picture, so just kind of a weird niche about me. So when I came back here, I was actually really lucky enough to have the help of Ken Patterson, who's no longer with us. He really helped me, for a man that, really was just top volume at all times, I'm shocked at how well he was able to still assist me, because I have that struggle where I'm just 100 miles a minute, and I don't know how he did that so well. But I do know that he had a lot of boundaries.
Because he was 1,000 miles.
He was.
He was
That's it. And he had a lot of boundaries.
From daylight till midnight.
He had boundaries. He told me all the time. He repeated it. Gotta go. He'd run through here with his, bag and go, gotta go. 2:00, I'm riding bikes. And I'd look at him like, we still have a lot of work to do. And he goes, nope, I'm leaving.
100 degrees out.
That's it. So he was very structured, in my opinion. I feel like he had flexibility to help me a lot, but he was very structured,
I like to hear about Ken.
Yeah.
When I first started, Ken was there in that office. So, yeah, that's good. So what did he, I mean, there's a lot that he probably did to kind of help you with that transition, but can you think of like maybe just a couple of points that he made that you kind of are able to integrate into your business?
I feel like I would go to Ken for a lot of questions, maybe just getting back into the business 5 years ago, asking him things that I already knew. So when I would start to ask him about retail and, whatnot, he would answer me and I'd know that I had a better answer. So believe it or not, I just would be like, I'd take what I could from Ken and go, okay, I already knew the answer. I just need to be more confident getting back into the business. And then when I didn't know something like development, he knew a lot more. He would teach me a lot about, development, conditional use permits in town, but he really extended a lot that I didn't know. So I would go to him wherever I could and take from it. I think the biggest thing that Ken left me with, which is probably very crucial to me today, and I've had to sharpen the pencil all the way through these last 5 years, but I can honestly tell you guys that it's the best decision I've made, and he's taught me that, was that he would always tell me, don't lower your commission. Don't give in. Don't lower your commission. Ask for this. And then he'd ask for certain things on land. And I'd go, why are we asking that much? And he goes, because that's what you should be getting. Land isn't, always the same price as, these other units. You should be going for this, don't give it away. So he always was that voice of reason. And I would tell you guys that I went through the years still negotiating to not lose a deal. Okay, I'll do it for this, or do it for that. But as I progress, it's probably the biggest thing that I've been adjusting, especially this year, where I'm turning people away because my time is valuable and I know how much money I spend on everybody to give everybody an equal presentation. I do my photography, my drone, just like we all do. I do my marketing that costs me a lot of money. It's almost like a mortgage, the marketing that I pay for. So I just can't afford to consider myself any cheaper. Even though I'm never going to lose a deal over money, I probably won't. I still have to come out strong and believe that, we should be entitled to what we ask for. That's what he taught me.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we all do that. I mean, I know I do. Where I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I'll pay for that for you. Or yeah, and you're right, because it's like we all put those things into our listings or our buyers where we're spending our own money. And yeah, so I think that's huge. So basically my two takeaways are Ken helped you build your confidence and trust your own, intuition.
Yeah.
And he told you don't lower your commission.
That's it.
Which I feel like that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what areas do you cover? Where's your boundaries?
I pretty much market myself as just Inland Empire, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. So I'll go wherever the road takes me, but I think that when you get enough work locally, you just end up getting in that circle, that loop. I try to get out of the loop as much as I can. I try to tell myself that I need to step away and drive the car and go out, because you could take your laptop and pull up in front of a house, or a property, and make a different day, make a different name for yourself somewhere else. But when you're so inundated the way I've been locally, that's a good thing. But I don't spread out as much as I'd like to,
But you have the clientele here.
Yeah, so it just keeps feeding me here.
So I have a question about that. What do you do to stay in front of your clients and kind of, because it sounds like you kind of started here and it's just been growing and snowballing.
Yeah.
And that's what we all want for our business. We all want our people to kind of snowball into more people.
Yeah.
But what are you doing to stay in front of your clients?
So I'll tell you, my failure has been that I've been wanting a website for years. So I've done web design in my past young age, and so I know how to design. So I've been working on that design for 5 years. And my husband says, it's dinosaur, leave it alone. It's one of the biggest things he tells me all the time, because he hears that I struggle with it, because I want that pretty website that's founded with all the bells and whistles that I know I can create that would be different than somebody else in commercial, I could really bring some local fun links, so that's been a big failure for me. And so my husband reminds me quite often that, Terry, you don't need that dinosaur website. You have done so well on Instagram.
Mhm.
So I only do Instagram. I don't do Facebook, but I have met so many people through Instagram. I mean, today I had a 9:00 appointment with someone who wants to open their first store. And I just took 15 minutes to talk to her about it. I'll see you in a couple years. But I took 15 minutes to say, this is what you're looking at. This is how to get there. Keep in touch, So Instagram is absolutely just been phenomenal for me. I started Instagram in commercial focus, following every single business I could out there, every restaurant, every retail, and that was the path I took. So for you guys, or anybody doing residential, it was a really different focus. I wasn't looking at just people. I was looking at businesses, and then that just kept expanding. And I would say that my followers are, for the most part, all businesses. That has actually worked, and those are the people that follow me back. But then there's been a whole bunch of locals that follow me that we message each other behind the scenes, and I don't even know that they would call me if they ever sold a house, because they're just following me on the commercial front, and they talk and they post, they like my stuff. But again, nobody thinks that I do residential, so nobody's really calling me on that level from there. But Instagram has been very, very good for me.
I just did a class on social media and Instagram. So I'm like,
Yeah.
hope everybody's listening,
It's
because
awesome.
it does. It makes such a big difference, and it's free.
Yeah.
Like I always say that. So do you do anything differently for people that you know directly? Do you maybe like some people send out things, mailers, things like that. Do you do anything like that?
No, like I said, I think that we all, would love to be great at everything. I think I'm always saying that. If we could be a good mom, good at the house, awesome body, if we could do it all. I struggle at executing all of those things because I want to do them myself. That's where I struggle. I didn't hire somebody to do my website because I know I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also am so busy that I let off of those, plans. And I don't send out, a bunch of Christmas cards. I don't do constant mailers. So I definitely feel like I fail at a lot of those things because I'm always running and I'm always going, but somehow everybody that's in my circle always comes back to me. So that part's good. They come back, or I get calls, just like we do, I just got referred to you from so-and-so. So it's working for me and keeping me lovingly busy, but I struggle at all that stuff that I want to have, that you think, you need to have.
On your website, do you write code? Do you do all the code, or do you use like a platform?
I used a platform and then started writing a bunch of code. And I basically wanted to just be a local website that does stuff that you wouldn't find. So my plans were to do, hey, if you're a property owner that owns a corner lot and it can be a Christmas tree lot during season, I can do it at least for you and get you some revenue on your, I wanted to have like a fun, cute, because that's my background, is just being a creative person. I love art and creativity, and that was really what I wanted to be able to do. Set up links that all of my clients could go to and say, shop for retail in Redlands, or shop for this. I wanted to just make it an easy, robust platform that I can't find anywhere. I've went and looked at every single platform, and I like it for one reason or another. So again, that's why I think I baby that dream to have it. I don't know if I'll ever have it. I mean, it looks really darn good. If I go into it right now, it's just I haven't pushed the button. So we all struggle.
You should do it.
Yeah, we all struggle.
We're gonna follow you.
Right.
We're gonna
One day.
Let's all follow Terry and make sure, because that sounds really cool. I think, like you said, there are so many lots that would have good use during certain seasons or something like that. So just to be able to click that, and I feel like people today don't want to call and talk and go in an office. Like, they want to be able to click a link and have it. So
again, guys, it's a niche.
Yeah.
That's what you guys are hearing. It's a niche offering that I can do subleasing.
Yeah.
I can lease. I can sell your building. It's not going to have anything residential on it, but people ask me all the time. Somebody messaged me on Instagram the other day and said, Terry, you just listed all these houses. I thought you didn't do residential. And I said, no, I focus on promoting myself commercially, but I will not pass on residential. So and I have, clients that will tell me, Terry, you've got to do residential for me. I've got a rental property. I've got this. So I'm still very in touch with residential. I always have been. And in my spare time, I'm always looking at properties. So I still stay very, I think, competent to a degree on residential. But I just have a passion for this. So I'm going that direction. And it's really hard, I think, to just make, yourself known to it all. It sends mixed signals, in my opinion. Not that you can't do it, but it does. like the broker level, they frown on it. They look at it like, oh, you do residential. It's you either do what you do and you do it good, or you don't do it. But it doesn't mean you can't. So I'm just not promoting myself in that light, but I still don't, pass it up.
Yeah, if you have like friends or family
Yeah.
that are like, hey, I need you to sell my house, you're
Yeah.
not going to tell them
But
no.
that's just the direction I've decided to go in trying to focus, to keep focus.
Yeah.
Niche.
I think that's hard for all of us, is just keeping a focus. And like you said, it kind of, the more I talk to our mega agents, it makes me feel better, because same, I feel like I should be having a website and I should be sending and I do, but not at the consistent level that I would want to. But you're still doing, I think it's a good thing to focus on at least once. So you're focusing on Instagram, and that's working for you.
Right.
So can I ask you, I follow you on Instagram, so I see what you post, but from your own words, what images and messages and things are you posting that has had people, want to engage with you?
So I'm not a big social person. I don't want to get on Facebook. I just don't really love social. And I'm definitely lacking on social in the same degree of what we expect it should look like, like doing those. I'm on Canva. I pay for Canva, and I pay for all the top, premium. So I could be making some really cool posts, but it'll just slow me down. So I don't do it. So sometimes I think that instead of not doing something, you should just do something that is who you are at the moment. And I think the biggest thing is that we're always evolving. We're always evolving. So as long as you have that mentality, it's okay if right now I don't have Instagram where I dream that it should be. But I just post a little bit of what I'm doing. I think that's just, I've went with what feels good for me and what's easy. And it hasn't been a lot of video. I don't do any video. It's just, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And, and then a lot of little personal, because a lot of people message me on a friendly level, even my clients. How's it going? How's your son doing? So I post a little bit more personal than I think I should. I do, but I'm okay with it, and again, my mentality is also that if somebody doesn't love me, that's okay. They can leave. So I think with that mentality, which I can talk to you guys about too, because that's a big one for me in real estate. If somebody doesn't want to be here, they'll leave, and I don't need to have them anyway. So I'm not worried about what personal stuff I share. It's who I am. This is what I'm doing. My son just left school 2 weeks ago. I'm proud of him. So I post a lot of just what I'm feeling, and I'm okay with that,
I think people like that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that when you post about your son is like, ugh, her son. I think everybody's happy to see that you're a human and you have a life, and you like your kids, So I'm like, I don't think there's anything that's wrong with that. Okay. This is what I like to ask now. What does a day in your life look like?
I go to the gym early in the morning, usually. I know the body doesn't reflect it. I'm struggling, but I go every morning. And I sit in the sauna. It's a big deal for me to sit in the sauna and just think about my day and where it's going. And I feel like it gets me kind of like on the spring step faster than it would just sitting around. So I really like that structure. Going to the gym, getting the sauna, feeling good because I leave, the spring in my step type of thing. And I find that I'm more efficient through the day. And I find that it helps me with my stress level through the day on the days I go. The days I don't go, the stress, will wind up on me by noon. So that's pretty much what I do. And then I get myself going, and then I'm at the desk most of the day. I don't get out as much unless I'm showing something, as we all do. I just feel like I'm doing a lot of desk work. So I'm trying to constantly be aware of when I can fit in those little breaks for myself, like just to get out no matter what it is, because I will just saturate at the desk with all the typing and emails. And so that's really what it is. And it'll go a long day. I've tried to shorten my days up. I tend to go till about 6 o'clock every day. And some days will get lucky and shorten it up and it's 4, but that's a rarity. It's like, I try, I'm not as structured. I'll just kind of do it till I feel good about where I'm at, that I got a good enough amount of work done today and the rest can wait till tomorrow.
What time do you think you would sit down at your desk? What's your block looking like?
I'm usually at my desk by 9.
Okay. So 9 to 6. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's a good work day. And I feel like a lot of us, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but I'll sit at the desk and I'll answer escrow questions and I'll, answer emails and stuff. And I really try to, again, put myself out there so that I'm bringing in new leads. Is there anything you're doing in that time that you have where I must be doing this to bring in new people?
I think I started doing something for this year that's actually been working for me. And what it is I've told myself, if I have 5 big things out of my whole list, because I've got a whole notepad, every day I tend to just keep writing on my notepad. This is what I got to do. Call this person, follow up. And we get caught up in all of these things that sometimes the 5 big things are getting ignored. And it's the truth. The 5 big, if you went through there and had to highlight only 5 big things, you would not probably be working on those 5. You'd be working on one of them if you're lucky, because you're tending to, the mentality I think for most is I got to do more and I have to respond to more people. The more emails, the more you start feeling better about yourself. At least that's how I work. So I started this thing called like the paperclip strategy. So I put 5 paper clips on my desk every morning and they sit there. And I tell myself, I'm going to work on these 5 things. So I've caught myself in this phase now of working better and faster at these 5 things. So, cause I know I want to get to those other 10. So I'm definitely trying to be more vigilant of the 5 good ones. So the 5 good ones are I'm writing an offer. I'm prospecting to a lead that I just talked to that wants me to list, whatever you're doing. But when you tell yourself that, you're shifting focus to that top 5 and you're being selective. Every 5 I do, I put my paperclip back in my bin. So I'm looking at it constantly. Like I want to make these other calls. I want to go out into the field maybe today and do a little lead, drive. So I'm always looking at those 5. And that's probably been really helping me this year to get to those other 10 to 15 emails I've got to make. I got to call him back. I got to follow up. I got to update this person. So I'm really trying to shift my focus, because if I don't, that whole thing just becomes a blur. You don't write in order. You start writing in order, but then all these things come in and then another good thing can be down here. So by doing that, I'm starting to look at my list and just focus on what are my top 5. And then I go and I cross it off. So when I'm done with that, now it's time for all the excess. So that's been working for me really well.
I do a similar thing. I'm not as organized as that, but I'll put it in my phone where I'm like, this has to get done, and I'll cross them off, same thing. I kind of want to go back a little bit. So this is so interesting to me that you basically, you had started your business, stopped, started again. What did you do to help get this new business going and like make yourself look like the expert in that field?
In all of that, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, so that probably helps. I had my first store at 19. I traveled at a young age, graduated early, and I opened up a first store in the Arcadia Mall at 19. And I was proud of that retail store because I'd learned so much overseas that I was able to convince my dad to help me out and open the store. So my risk level is very, very heightened. I just run after risk. Anything risky, I want to be a part of it. So that probably helps me a lot. And with that said, I think in my day job, raising the kids, I set back a little bit because I was like, I'm busy. I go to every baseball game. I'm just exhausted. I'm busy. And this is where I'm supposed to be right now. But in the back of my head, I would always think about my retail store and like, what can I do? I want to get back into retail. I want to get back into that. If I open a store or I'm doing something that is rewarding. And so I always knew, it was real estate. Like in the back of my mind, it would always be there. I'm going to get back into real estate when the time is right. And so my son, the one that's 18, he knew that I was doing all this creative stuff and just kind of spinning my wheels and trying to be that person that's occupying feeding your soul. And he says to me one day, Mom, why don't you become a commercial agent again? Why don't you go after that? Because he knew in conversation that I wanted to get back there. And this one day he says it to me and he goes, why don't you do it? This is at the time, he's 18 and a half right now. So he's probably 13. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him and I go, yeah, I think I will. And he goes, you could do it. He goes, I know you could do it. Like this was like my pep talk right here. And he says, you can do it. And I go, yeah, you're right. I can. So I went through the licensing again, renewed my license, got hired here with KW. And I got hired down by the beach area to do what I thought I needed to do. So to do commercial and be supported in it, I was basically going to drive to Aliso Viejo every day, which I'm glad I didn't because Teresa welcomed me here and said, no, you can try it. Here we'll welcome you. And so it was a big break for me to not have to drive over there and just be, 1 block down the street from my house. And so when I got back into it, I think it's just my mentality. My mentality is very, I'm very well-rounded. I've got a lot of experience. If I don't have all the answers, I definitely have seen a lot. I've done a lot of things. I've done leasing. I've done short sales. I've done a lot of seller finances. So I've just done so many things that I'm like, no, I'll figure it out. I can do it. I'm going to jump back in. And I actually had a talk with an agent that owns a brokerage in town. And he was showing a property originally when I first got back into it. And he said something to me like, hey, I've never seen you around. How are you going to break into commercial here? How are you going to do that here? And I said, well, what do you mean? You're leasing commercial right now. I'm here to see the property. And he goes, no. I mean, how are you going to do retail out here? It's a tough market. How are you going to do it? And I remember I looked at him and I just thought, you're going to see me around. Oh, he just, and he didn't do anything with this property for a long time. I was the only one showing it. After that, for a while, I was on it. I'm going to show this property. I'm the one that's going to lease this property. And long story short, that property didn't go anywhere. And I ended up mailing a letter to an owner at another property in town. She calls me and says, I want to fire my agent. I own this property, and ended up being that property. So she fired him, and I've been with her now 5 years, and I do all of her properties. But it's a weird story too, because that owner, she was part of I think it's meant to be is where I'm headed with this. She was part of a circus. So she's up in Oakland, and there's a bunch of I don't know if you guys have ever been up Oakland, and you see all of the Ferris wheels out in the front yard. I had moved here 15 years ago and took photos of the horse in the front because I was into photography. I was into art stuff. I'm a mom. I have nothing, going on for me. I love photography. So I'm taking a photo of her property. And then once I meet her, I'm like, you're that lady. She goes, yeah, mine's the one with the Ferris wheel. And I'm like, I have a photo in my phone 15 years ago that I took a photo of. And so we connected that way. And it's a cute story, but so I still work with her. And, to answer your question, you just pick up and cultivate steam as you go. You don't let anybody, stop you.
Well, I also heard you say you mailed a letter. So was that useful to you in the beginning of your career to mail letters to property owners and stuff like that? Did you get good leads from that?
Yeah. So, what I would say, kind of just branching off that a little bit is this. Everybody hands business cards, or I started out when I started with KW kind of showing up at properties, and I would go buy a box full of those cookies, it's stuff that we all do as agents. We've all done it, where you buy a cookie and put your card on the cookie. And I'd get out at a building and go, hey, are you the owner? Are you a tenant? Just letting you know I'm in town. So I did all of that. But I realized, 5 years right now back in on it, the biggest thing you can do is deposit an email. If you can deposit an email, they will go keyword search you later. It's probably been the biggest course of action that's paid off for me that I have actual response from. So I'll go and call people out in the field and pull up in front of a property and pull up their info and try to connect with an owner. And I reached out to a plaza owner that I was down in Moreno Valley 3 years ago, and I called him and, having a talk, just, trying to see what your use is. I see you have a lot of vacancies here. And sure enough, a year ago, he writes me and goes, Terry, I Googled everywhere trying to find you in my email because I knew I had you on email. So I typed in KW. So in my subject line, I always put KW commercial and then the address I'm talking about. That guy Googled in his email bin KW, and he came to me. So that has been a big one for me, where a lot of people have me on email. And someone just did it yesterday, as a matter of another owner. I'm an owner in town. I have a question for you. Do you still have photos on a property? I have a big problem now. Yeah, I do. Here's my marketing flyer. So the guy just found me again in Google. It's been 5 years. So, or not in Google, kind of search bar is what I meant to say.
That's interesting.
So email to me is a huge one. It's bigger to me than calling and leaving my name and number. Email, I will try to get someone's email every chance I can, even if I don't talk to that person again for a long time. I always say, is there an email where I can send you my information so that you have it if you ever need me? And that's probably been the biggest source of contact with people.
That is very interesting, because it's almost exactly the opposite.
It is.
In residential.
Yeah.
Where we're all oh, don't even bother with email. No one's going to get back to you on that. I'm sorry, but I'm writing that down. Hope you guys are writing that down too.
Well, and it works. I had taken over one of Ken Patterson. I'll tell you guys it works. I took over. Ken Patterson had some, by the way, he listed all this land, thank you, Ken, for things that were up in the mountains, and Terry hates heights. So he listed something in Malibu. You guys wouldn't believe the drive up to this property. I about lost marbles driving to this property. So I knew what I was selling. Some lady that, we had an expired listing. She found out that her records were not right with tax assessors. So she pulled back after we expired. She talked to me and said, I will call you back because you've done a good job at the end, but I need to fix this parcel and then we'll put it back up for sale. She messaged me 2 months ago, same kind of way. Terry, I'm writing you. I found you in my email. I could not find you for the life of me, but please know I'm getting all the corrections made so you can list the property soon. But that was just an out of the blue, and I wrote back, great, thank you for keeping me in mind. But to me, email is is everything. And I've had that with residential too. I really
Really?
have. I just think that email is the top of the list for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something that's again free that I'm not paying a lot of attention to. So I'm gonna this is helpful to me. Okay. So now let's kind of go towards what you do to, you talked about your stress. So what do you do to kind of take a break and recharge?
I work from home ever since the pandemic. I know that we had a lot of things here, that said offices closed, that everybody had COVID going around. And at the time I was remodeling my home, like gutting it. So I made my home office just the most beautiful place to be. So I'm real approachable. You guys can always call me, but I love my home office, and it's empty and it's quiet. And so I work there efficiently. But I also struggle with, you could just sit there and keep going and going and going. So the biggest thing I've learned to do is, if it's going to be a day for me at the home office where I'm not in the field or not planning to be on an appointment, I just try to make breaks. So that's been a big one for me, is I work a couple hours, and when I start feeling like I need a break, I will go jump in the car and run an errand. I will go, walk in the backyard. So again, I try to be more aware of not having the burnout, because that's been a big one for me. My stress levels, as the calls come in, remind me a lot of being on a stage and somebody throwing tomatoes at you. That's what I've said for like the last 3 years as my business has continued. And like you said, I don't use a TC for a certain reason. For me, for what I'm doing, there's a reason. And so
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna ask you.
Yeah,
a question about it. It's coming.
so I just realized that you got to have these breaks. If you have these small breaks, you recharge, no matter how small they are, and you get back to it.
So small breaks through the day. Okay. I think that's good for us all to hear. Okay, so speaking of stress levels again and helping mitigate that, we'll talk about the TC. So there's a reason why you personally choose to do everything, because I'll let you explain that. So,
well, I mean, I had one deal where I used a TC, and I was always, trying to fight her to get me the info. So it was a bad experience. But the biggest problem is that in commercial, if you're working with documents that are not like the California Association of Realtors, the CAR forms, and you're working with AIR CRE forms, or you're working with attorney, drafted contracts or owner drafted contracts, there's sometimes language in there where things become automatic removals of contingencies. It's a huge difference night and day from residential. In residential, what your day is that's coming up due. Like your 17-day due diligence, you're monitoring it. And it's really a nudge. Nothing's automatic. It's
Right.
a nudge of like, hey, I need to release this or not. In commercial, it can actually just automatically remove, and you could be subject to losing your client's money or not getting the money for them. I mean, there's a big, big stress there that I have not been comfortable letting go of. And that's just the truth, is that I'm like, that scares me to death. I would have to really be sold on the fact that I hired somebody and that they learned from me, or they knew well enough that they sold themselves as commercially experienced with documents, for me to trust that. So that's just the primary reason I don't. It doesn't mean that TCs haven't been used by me in the past. They have. But with commercial, it's for that reason. It's touchy on these time frames.
So how long would you say you've been without, that you've just been solely doing everything on your own?
These last 5 years.
So
I've always used a TC before now, and now I just do it on my own. I'm pretty much a control freak too. I mean, I am. So I admit, I just have my ways and I run with it, and I know it gets challenging, but I stay on it. So as long as I stay on it.
Have you ever considered maybe like a virtual assistant to kind of maybe handle the easier workload of maybe like posting and sending emails and things like that, but not the contracts?
No, in this lifetime, you guys, we could make these decisions, but I just don't see it being for me. In this lifetime, I like to do everything myself. It's my personality, and it'll, probably be the bad of me, because of my stress. My stress levels get through the roof because I have all these people, and I have to always remind them that, hey, you're not the only one. I've got a lot of people. I'm trying to get to you. I'll get to you as soon as I can. That's a big struggle for me, but it's just the way I prefer to do it. So for me, I don't see myself being anybody else. My husband says it all the time, like, you're taking on a lot by yourself. Can't you do this? Can't you do that? And I go, yeah, but I don't want to. It's just where I'm at. It's who I am. And when I need to, I've called on Nick, when I need to, I will. And I wish I could do it more, but I just, I think it's my personality. I just kind of run with a big package. It's my personality for sure.
Yeah, I will say that there have been times when I've had dabbled in commercial while I've called you and been like, hey, what do I do? And it's interesting hearing, because I know you're a busy woman. Now I know you're busier than I thought you were. And you still take the time to talk
I
with
try.
me.
It's-
I mean,
yeah.
you know, I won't keep her for an hour, but I just think that's great that I know, knowing that you're so busy, you have so much on your plate, but you will still take the time to.
We're all trying to keep going and, you know, do more.
Yes, I know we are. I have another question for you. What are your goals moving forward?
You know, my goal is, you know, in later in life, like right now, I keep going. I keep looking at my awards that I keep getting, and it shows that I'm, you know, one year I was at 2 million, and I was at 3 million, and I was at 4 million. So that's been my small goal, is just kind of fun to see if I can keep going that way. But I'm not working after any particular dollar amount, and I really don't. I think I just have a level of, you know, how much can I get and do and close, and how many people can I meet? So for me, it is just a chase. It's more of a chase. That's my personality as well, like sales, and how many things could I actually resolve? That's really the answer. You know, when I meet people and they go, oh, I need your help, I can't figure this out, or how do we do this? That's what stimulates me, where I'm just like, yeah, I've got an answer, I can help you, here's the plan, let's do this. But in the long run, my plan is to retire in Texas, and I'd love to have a side shop commercial, and that's really what I want to do. So every time I go to Texas, I'm always looking at the side of the road and looking at buildings, because I tell my husband, I guess I can't retire, he will. I'm not. I'm behind him. So I'm always told that I have to work another 10 years after he retires. So I really would love to have a little roadside stand. And my husband actually must support it, because he said something the other day. He says, you're going to have a roadside commercial office. And he goes, and then I know what's going to be next door. He goes, it'll be a 2-unit. He goes, there'll be a coffee shop next door that you own. So see, he ties in. He knows that I like retail. He knows I love coffee shops and restaurants. So that was cute, you know, and
Yeah.
that's really my goal down the road. I hope that I can get there.
Like a road. I like that idea. Can I ask you what your first store was when you were 19?
Yeah, so I don't want to get crazy, because I have a weird, I started working at like 14
Okay.
in the mall, and I worked, you know, had to go to my dad and say, can I work, please, just sign off for me. And I've worked all my life since, you know, other than the down time that you guys hear. And so when I was young, I graduated school early, and I got picked up with a subsidiary of Microsoft. They had a little subsidiary that basically did voiceovers on all the games, Mortal Kombat, all these games. So I got really tied up in this company and hired, and they made me a trade show rep at like 18, and I had to tell everyone I was 21. So I traveled at 18 overseas to more countries than you can imagine. I mean, I went to Korea, Germany, you know, for weeks at a time. And I'd get back and they go, Terry, can you go to Sweden? Yeah, and I did this. So I was basically doing sales at that point, and then ending up in these countries and negotiating deals. So I was there saying, will you take 100,000 units of Mortal Kombat? Will you buy this? So I have a sales background before I have my career job that I had. And so when I did all of that, I came home and I had all these contacts, and I told my dad, I said, I got a plan. I met the top wholesalers overseas, so I can outsell the people here, because now I know these people. I've been there, and I can sell games in the mall, and I can sell them cheaper than everybody else. So the long story short of it is, I talked my dad into it, investing with me, and I took all my money that I had saved, and I went into the mall next to Nordstrom's and opened up a big game shop. So I did that, and I did blow out the other game shop in the store. There was like a Software Etc. at the time, and they were coming in going, how are you selling at these prices? And I was like, I have some people I know. So I did that until the big boys came in. When the big boys came in from Florida, they moved in, like I took over an N unit, like a Macy's, and then I had to close shop. So again, I found myself negotiating out of a major lease, where my lease at age 19 was $4,600 a month, plus, you know, commission of sales, plus utilities. And now I do leases for less. And I go, wow, I did that in 1998. And I was paying these top numbers, and I negotiated to get myself out of it by settling my lease term. So again, that helps me today, because I relate really well to leasing. And hey, you could do this. It's not so black and white. There's actually a remedy to get out of a lease. You could settle, you could do things. And so I did just that at like 21.
I wish we would have talked more about that. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
I don't share that, because people look at me like I'm already a mile a minute. I already am as a person. So if I get into all of that dicey stuff, it's like, who are you? What do you
We need
do?
another hour. I'm like,
I
wait,
know,
hold
yeah,
on. Yeah, that's very interesting. That's very cool. So that explains your background with your website and stuff like that, and computer programming and things like that. So I bet your website will be super cool when you put it out.
Kind of. I just did that for fun. I was in that
How
arena. Yeah.
cool. Seriously, I'm like, should we stay another hour? I want to know more about that. Okay, but we'll stay on track. I won't make you go into that, but maybe I'll call you about that sometime. Okay, so can you recommend if there's any books, podcasts, things like that that help you kind of grow your business, give you ideas?
Yeah, I don't listen to a whole lot. I like that Stay Paid podcast. That one has been good for me. Obviously, you take what you can from it. There's books along the way that I've enjoyed reading. Early on in my sales, there's something that I would just tell you guys to go look up, but it's fun to read about if you don't know about it. But I learned young about the cookie factor. And the cookie factor is just kind of about depositing. If you guys know the DoubleTree Hotel, they give a cookie, and it's their signature thing. Every time you stay, you get a nice warm cookie. So there's a lot about the cookie factor that I learned early, and just kind of enjoyed that. So I think that's where a lot of my prospecting came from, that I want to give somebody something. So I literally would go to like Sam's Club and buy a big box of like those Misfilled single cookies and put my card on it and drop it. So I did what we all do to get started. And I think I just do that now in a different way. So I still give, the clients closing or surprise them with something along the way, but a lot of that comes from just that wanting to kind of give away something, make an impression, let somebody know that, I'm more about just, trying to do a sell, I'm trying to give you something. That's pretty much it.
I like that, the cookie factor. I'm going to look that up. I've never heard of that. That's interesting. I'll ask one more question from you, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I would like to just dig in a little bit deeper. What drives you?
I think the biggest thing for me, and again, residential and commercial are two different things, but there's a lot of similarity, which I could share with you guys, just put it in your ear, and what I see and what I think is being missing, or something that might stem, some extra from you, whether you guys have done it or not. But what drives me is trying to, be timely and get into something before somebody else does. So a lot of it for me is timing. Can I get in something that I see as an opportunity and then strike? And then could I get that? Can I actually make that mine? Can I get that listing? Can I help that seller get a tenant or whatnot? And that's one big thing for me. So my drive is all about, finding opportunity where there's a true need. So like when I used to do residential, you guys, and you guys know more than me because you're doing residential, those that are, the residential stuff, I used to go by and do all of the things where I would see for sale by owner call, signs. And I'd call for sale by owner sign, trying to get him to hire me like we all do. But I never really did the calls to the properties like I do with commercial. And I've realized in the last couple of years, it's been really kind of crystallizing to me that is something that residential agents could do as well. And what that is I get out and I take my iPad and I use the database that shows me who the owner is, which you guys can do all through the MLS as well. Yeah. And I'll go out and say, today I'm going to go grab myself a Starbucks, and I'm going to be in the field today in Corona, and I'm going to drive by properties. Now, I have a drive for anything vacant, and it's because for me, vacant properties have the biggest need, in my opinion. It's flashing red light that there's some kind of need there. When you see a vacant house or you see a vacant commercial property, no property should be sitting. They're not making money. So there's an absolute need of some kind. And whether that's to lease that property or whether that's to sell the property, that's where my chase is at. So I think that's my love. I love to go after vacants for that reason. And it might have just been that over the years, that's been an easy entry for me, and it's paid off because there's a need. I already have a small open door to find out what is your need. I'm here as a source to help you. Are you looking for a long-term credit-worthy tenant, or are you looking to sell this property? What can we do? And so you guys can do it as well in residential. If you can get in front of these properties and you see a vacant house, that vacant house is, in my opinion, it's a diamond in the rough because there's already a very probable need there versus you calling on expireds, although expireds, in my opinion, would be second in line because obviously somebody had a desire to sell. Listing got taken down, but to me, I love vacant properties.
That's interesting. So you will call them. Is there any other way you'll try to get in touch with those owners if the call doesn't work?
Yeah, so I pull up in front of the properties. I use a lot of the reverse. I actually pay for a couple of the reverse portals. So I have my database, and in my commercial database, sometimes it'll show me a phone number. Most of the time it doesn't. So I take the address, I go into the reverse searches, and I will call an owner. Bottom line, I have a right to call you. There's a need here.
Mhm.
So my target conversation really is, hi, I'm sitting in front of your property at 100 North Main Street. I'm a commercial agent, just wondering if you have some plans with it. What are you looking to do? Do you want to lease it, or are you looking to sell? Yeah, I was thinking about doing this. So it's just an entry for me that I've really done well at. So I tend to do more vacants because I find that the ease of getting in and being a source of helpful information to that owner is kind of pretty evident. It's very evident outside of just calling expireds or seeing a for sale by owner sign, or seeing broker signs that are old. That's another one. I will go and pull up in front of a property, and my navigation tool will show me that I'm in front of a property, and I'll see a residential sign that's up. Somebody had it. And I will pull up and say, let me see if it's in the commercial database. And it's not. Then I go check the residential. Oh, it expired. So I do a lot of that. Just because you see a sign, it doesn't mean that it's not in need. It could be an old sign. They could have lost the listing. So I do that a lot, where I pull up and just see if it's still active. If it's not, then I call the owner, you know. So that's my drive, really, Jackie, just getting out. And I think it's a chase for me. What you guys are hearing, that's my entry. That's my bread and butter, what I love to go after.
So it's like you enjoy the chase.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's usually the hard part for most of us. It's like the chase. I think, that's interesting. I like that you like the hard part, kind of. You know what I mean? I think that's great.
Because you guys have to change your mentality that there's a reason to be here. There's a reason for me to call you. There is. And it's hard to argue that. If you're calling somebody and they need help, they're going to let you talk. Even if they don't hire you, they're going to let you have a shot at it. That's what I think. And that's what I know based on my calls. Like I've called before where I call an owner and they go, oh, I had an agent and he didn't do anything. He didn't market it. And then I already know, I've looked it up and I go, they didn't have it in the commercial database. It wasn't being marketed, but I can do that for you. What are you looking to do? So if there's a reason to call and there's a need, so that to me is a very good bread and butter way of me going and having a need every day when I choose to be in the field. So when I say today I really need to be in the field, I'm going to go look for something. And I'll back that up and tell you guys, going back to stress, a couple of days ago, I was slammed. Like I should not have left my desk, but I knew I needed to break out. I had to go show a property. And I said, I'm going to go out for just like 2 or 3 hours with my iPad because I haven't done that lately. And I'll give you an example. I went out, called an owner sign that was on a property that I've been seeing sit forever. And I've tried to call it years in the past. He's never been responsive. And I pulled right up in front of it, left him a message. I said, I just want you to know that I'm in front of your property. I see that it's vacant. I'm wondering what you're trying to do. I do sales and leasing. If you're trying to find a tenant, I'd love to talk to you about it. Please give me a call. I'd love to share what I can do. The guy called me back in like 10 minutes. So I was down the street at another property. He called and he said, I know that I have to pay you $15,000 or $20,000 to lease this place, but will you take a payment plan? I said, yeah, I'll take a payment plan. So that was his hang up. He already knew how much it's going to cost. I go, I don't like to take payment plans, but okay, with some reason, I'll take a 3-month payment plan. He goes, okay, send me the listing. So that was me getting out in the field there. And then I went down the street and I did another one where I called and that guy called me back to list a property. But I went in front of it. It's vacant. He goes, yeah, I'm in escrow on it. I'm buying it and I want to flip it. I bought it at dirt cheap, stayed with an owner for 5 years. I want to flip it. And that was another vacant. I was just calling to see what's going on here, So, that's why I like it. That's the chase, but it tends to pay off for me so far. So you kind of keep going back to what works, right? I mean, you always try to add, but for me, it's an easy way of communication for me.
Interesting. I like that idea. Yeah, because it makes it fun. And if they don't answer, like whatever.
Yeah.
But you have a good reason to call, like you
That's
said.
it. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're at the end of our interview, and I want to ask you: is there anything that you would want to let us fellow agents know that we haven't covered yet?
We covered a lot.
We did.
I talked about emails, you guys just getting out and depositing the emails. I think that, whatever you're doing in residential, can always be expanded on, don't, cut yourself short, try to, if you're having a hard time and you're not generating any business, go back to what it is I just kind of gave you guys, which is find the need. If you're struggling with finding those leads, go find them like you're doing, it's just like an Easter egg hunt. It really is. If you can find the vacant properties, you have a good chance at, having something. What can I do to show up here? They may need my services. So if you're struggling with all the other stuff that normally we try to do, that's a really good way for you to get out in the field, take a drive, take a look at properties. I see vacant properties in my sleep. I actually have people that will call me and go, Terry, will you pay me if I send you a vacant property? And I go, yeah, I will. If I can do something with it, sure, I'll buy you Starbucks, you know,
Or something, yeah.
because people hear me talk, like family and friends, you know, and they're like, I seen a vacant at the corner over here. Like I have people actually calling me trying to tell me that they see vacants. You guys will too now. I know tonight you guys are going to think about, I'm kidding.
No,
Um,
I
it's-
love this idea.
It's a great way for you to get out and still feel like you're being productive when you're having some lows, and you'd be shocked at some of the results on vacant. So if you need that little traction, I'd still do vacants on houses. Drive by and you see one that's down, what's going on with it? You know, call on it. Do that. And then the other thing I would say is, you know, commissions is a big one. And I was going to say, just because you guys are mostly residential, the biggest advice I would have is this. Leasing has been a huge, tremendous reason why I'm actually continuing to climb. And I love leasing, and I did a lot of residential leasing early on. But leasing is very misunderstood. A lot of people don't have the skills to do the leasing. I've seen leases that are written wrong, stupid mistakes, and I go, oh, that's a problem. They didn't write what the escalation is next year, or they didn't do this. I see mistakes on a lot of them. And what I would say to you guys is a lot of my business comes from all my leasing. You know, it really does. A lot of the leasing I do, hey, Terry, now I want to sell. Hey, Terry, can you help me buy my house? Or hey, it's the leasing is just so high volume that it pays me money in the downturn that we've had. And that's what I would tell you guys. I looked at my average. I'm leasing about 3 to 4 things a month. And that 3 to 4 would pay me a minimum of $10,000 a month in the event that I don't sell something. So if you guys look at that, $10,000 a month, that's more than I used to make in my day job. And I'm just writing leases and I get paid right away for them. So they don't have to go through escrow. We write them, you get paid for it. And so what I would say on a residential front is this. I cannot stand doing residential leasing because when I look at the commissions that people are getting, I just don't want any part of it. They're $200, buyer's agent commission $500.
Yeah.
Forget that. Create your own path, get into leasing to back up your times of low. You will expand on your lead generation with clients. And I think it's a substantial way of making money and making it last through these hard times we had. I went in January and started January doing all my cleanup, and I actually had told my husband, I'm worried. Heath, our owner, he had said something at the Christmas party like, "You guys better be ready." And my husband would repeat what he said to me all the way through the holidays. Remember what Heath said? You better be ready. Something's coming. And I'm laughing at my husband, going, "Boy, he really moved you, didn't he?
Yeah.
I'll be okay." But my husband repeated this to me over and over through like October to December. "Terry, you better be ready. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working on my organization. I'm going to be ready, and I'm going to, tighten up the bolts on where I'm at, what I charge, who I work with, because I can't do it all. And I have to make sense of it." And ultimately, my leasing kicked back up in gear in 2 weeks later. And I've really done well in my leasing, even though we've had a really bad economy. And now that the market is actually changing on the commercial front, everyone wants to sell so they can get their money. They don't care about the buyers buying right now in commercial. They just want to cash out. That's their way to get money. Get me out. I'm going to go move my money somewhere else. So I'm starting to see that. But when I didn't see that for those 2 weeks where I was a little worried, it was leasing for me. I was still writing leases and giving invoices for these leases. So for me, my advice to you guys would be embrace leasing, because to me, it's a huge money maker when everything else can seem kind of low. And I also would say make your own path. Do not worry about the $200 and $500 that people are charging out there. Make it count. You guys go after it and say, "I charge this for a lease. I charge $1,000 minimum for 1 year. If I sign it for 2 years, it's $2,000. Whatever you're going to do it like you would in commercial. There's no real reason why you shouldn't. People will lease in residential and make $200 to $500. I'll lease in commercial and minimum make $3,800 all the way up to $20,000, $25,000. So I'm just saying those are the numbers. I make $3,500. I make $8,000. I bill for $12,000. Yeah, it's not residential because residential is usually a 1-year term. That's the common, but don't fall into the common. Go after the commission, get those leases to pay you some quick money. That would be my biggest advice, because that's what's actually been a big savior for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
Johnny Cho, if you ever know Johnny Cho, the Remax.
Yeah.
He's a killer at leasing as well.
Yeah, I know who he is. It's funny you say. Yeah. Hi, Richie.
So would you be willing to teach a leasing class? Because I don't think that most of us know how to do that,
Right.
how to write that. And I don't know that we would have anyone that could teach us how to do that.
Yeah, I could. The residential is one that I kind of jump into probably once a year on the residential, but I still feel confident when I go to write one. I still can write
I'm
and
saying
talk about them.
residential and commercial.
Yeah.
Would
Either
you be willing to teach us how to write a lease?
Yeah, the commercial, Regina, I can also do, but the thing with commercial, you guys, is that everything isn't in the MLS. That's I've had this talk. There's a lot that you find out once you're in it. There's not a lot in the MLS that's out on the market. So what happens is I've had agents that have been here, in the past that have called me and go, Terry, I'm going to write a lease offer. How do I do it? And then they do it. And then they call me and they go, oh, they won't pay me commission. What's going on? The commercial world is different. Nothing is in the MLS that tells you necessarily that that's for lease. Probably 90% of brokers will list on their own terms, and it's just out there. And so when I call brokers I know, I'm just assuming that I'm going to get paid because I know who they are. If I see a property manager or an owner, I have to ask them, are you willing to pay me cooperating commission? And they'll write me back, yes, we are at this amount. So you've got to know what you're working for, or you might not get paid on it on a commercial front. And then on a commercial lease, it's different. There's the CAR documents, which I can explain those, but then most of the time it's the commercial air forms, which is 50 pages long. So it just depends on what you've got. But sure, I could explain it at a basic level for sure. And I think someone here did the LOI training. What was it? What's his name did training I seen weeks ago on the LOI.
Apex.
Medina. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that was great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But again, you guys, this goes back to the vacant talks that we're having. Again, just stemming business where you might not have it, or you want to start, really kind of pushing the numbers, however you get them. Vacants, if they need to be leased out, you're not trying to sell somebody all the time. And that's how I go about things. I'm not trying to sell you, I'm trying to offer you a solution. Which one is it, And when I called this guy that I told you about the other day, where I called him and he called me back a minute later, that was exactly the conversation. He heard me only talking leasing. I said to him, your property's vacant. I said, you probably just don't want another basic tenant. You want me to get you someone that's, going to see my marketing online, nationwide or regional. You want someone that wants to be here and want freeway visibility, right? He goes, yeah, but I know I got to pay 15 to 20 grand to do that. And I said, okay, well, we could talk about it, but I'm happy to help you find that tenant. And the next thing he said was, well, give me a quote too on selling. Tell me how much to sell it to. But again, you guys, this goes back to what I'm saying. It's a vacant property. Anything's possible. So I just didn't want to talk sales right away because I'm not trying to sell. The way I go about things, I'm not trying to sell. I'm here to try to help you either find a tenant or sell if that's what you want to do. Which is it? And I also have a big mentality. I'll just add on this. My mentality, which is also crucial. It's not stuck up because I'm not stuck up. It's more of you have to have a mentality that the deal or the listing is theirs to lose, not yours. That's what I've really sharpened my pencil on in this last year, is when I talk to people, I put that cap on. I am here to help you. If you don't take my help, that's fine. I might not be a match for you, but if you don't take my help, I believe that you're at a loss. I'm here to give you all my resources. I am experienced. I can help you. So it's yours to lose. And if you have that mentality, you actually do better at the negotiating of that contract, or how much they're going to pay you. And I stand firm. This is what I'm asking for, but I do a lot. Good luck if you don't call me. We'll see what they do. And that's my mentality. And I feel like that really has helped me a lot. Just really, again, sharpening the pencil and realizing that you guys are valuable. Don't have a fear. Just don't try to sell. Just try to solve the problem. That's what gets you in the door. I'm here to solve the problem. What can we do? And that